Hello everyone, and welcome to another WatchGuard tips and tricks video. I'm Ryan Poutre, the local sales engineer in the North Central region and the Wi-Fi subject matter expert for WatchGuard. Today we're going to take a look at how easy it is to configure your wireless network and secure your corporate airspace with the new WatchGuard Cloud Wi-Fi product. So the plan is to go from basically activating an AP through getting an SSID up and running and taking a quick look at some of the troubleshooting features that come with the WatchGuard Cloud product. And hopefully this is a good refresher for everybody if you've already seen it, but also maybe something interesting for people that have not got a chance to get in and play around with the WatchGuard Wi-Fi Cloud product yet. So get started. We got the watchguard.com. We're going to go to log in. If you don't have an account, you can create one. And under My WatchGuard, you will be able to go to activate a product. In here, you'll find the serial number of the AP on the outside of the box. Also on the AP itself, enter the serial number of the access point and go through the quick start wizard to activate the AP. Part of the activation includes the assigning a friendly name to the AP. I always like to assign something that makes sense. So maybe AP 225 W-Office 103, or some way to be able to look in here and grab the APs for renewal purposes or support purposes. Once they're done, you can verify that they're activated by going to Manage Products. And you'll see your AP serial number you activated, the friendly name that you assigned, when it expires from a support license perspective, and what model the AP is. Today we are working with an AP 225W, which is WatchGuard's new cloud access point. It is a wall plate AP designed to provide a very quick deployment for places that have maybe issues with rolling out cabling. It's a conference building or a courthouse that's all cement, or a school. These APs come with a 3-port, 4-port switch on the bottom of the AP. One is a PoE port, and it looks like this. So we got a switch on the bottom, layer 3, flat, very small AP. It's a 2x2 802.11 AC radio with a dedicated security radio inside. So nice little radio. And so we're going to go through configuring the switch and things like that today. Once your APs are activated and you verified they're in your product list, you can go to the Discover tile in the WatchGuard Cloud Launchpad. This is the management, troubleshooting, configuration interface now that is going to be a lot easier to use and is provides a lot more information than the other management interface does. So let's take a look at what we can do in here. First, under the monitoring tab, we can verify that our access points have been activated and synced correctly with the WatchGuard Cloud. Under monitoring Wi-Fi and looking at access points, you can see that this WatchGuard AP we activated is here. Status is active and online. It is up to date because I ran the updates before the demo here. Otherwise, it would say there's an update available. Make sure you keep the APs on the latest version of firmware. We are releasing a lot of new features all the time in the WatchGuard Cloud. It also gives you the MAC address, the current IP address it's on. These APs are going to take an IP from whichever VLAN is untagged on the port that they're plugged into on the switch. So whatever the default VLAN for that interface is what it's going to get an IP address on. This is a management IP. we can define VLANs and all of that stuff when we set up the SSIDs. Another key thing in here is the power source. Most of the WatchGuard APs require a PoE plus power source. The only one that does not is the AP125. This AP specifically does require PoE plus because it has a PoE switch in the bottom of the AP. So we're going to be powering this AP over PoE, and we're also going to have the ability to power a phone from this access point. So it does require that higher power source to power it. If for some reason your APs or one or more of your APs don't show up in this list, don't spend a lot of time messing around with it. Contact WatchGuard support or your WatchGuard partner or the local SE. We can help by reinitiating the sync if something does happen and they don't show up. So that's getting your APs activated and on in the dashboard. It's kind of the first step. The next thing we're going to take a look at is how we build out the folder structure inside WatchGuard Cloud. And this is really important because it's going to give us the ability to either centralize your configurations across multiple locations and multiple folders inside WatchGuard Cloud, or we'll be able to specify individual folder configurations depending on your organization's needs. So under System here, and we go to System Navigator, is where we can create this folder structure inside WatchGuard Cloud. And we can come in here and click Add a Folder, and we'll add a folder called Manson, where I am. And inside this Manson folder, we're going to create a floor. This is going to give us the ability to upload a floor plan and scale it for this deployment. This is the first floor. So now we have kind of this locations, which is our top level folder. Staging area is where your APs are going to come in from activation. And then we'll have, in this case, Manson as a folder and a floor plan for a building inside there. And again, you can customize this to your organization's needs. But this is kind of the general idea. The other thing we can configure in here is groups. What a group is a configuration that can be applied across multiple folders. So if we had another folder in here called Des Moines, another folder called Minneapolis, we could take this group configuration and apply it to individual APs in multiple folders. There's a couple use cases for this. Maybe we have a dedicated security radio that's used for remediation in each location. We can configure a group configuration and we can apply it to those individual APs at each site. So once these are created, we can actually come back up here to monitor Wi-Fi. Can take a look at our access points again, and then this button up here, we call it the navigation tree. You want to make sure you're selecting the appropriate folder when you're doing your configurations. So right now the AP we're going to be using is in our staging area. We want to move that AP to our new floor where it's going to be going. And it says that moving an access point to a different folder could cause it to be reconfigured with the configuration that's applied to that folder. That's okay. So now we can come down here and we can see this AP has been moved. I want to rename this AP because we want it to make sense if we ever need to go, troubleshoot or figure out where someone's connected. We don't want it just to be WatchGuard, so we're going to call this Manson-AP 225-office or something like that. It's also a good idea to keep this name and the name that you activate the product with something that's similar so that you can see if we needed to do an IRF or something for this AP because something happened to it. you would have to figure out, now this name is not the same as this name. So naming save you some time in the long run. Come up with a good naming scheme to use, and that can be unique to your organization. Now that we have the AP moved into the floor plan, we can come back to floor plans here, click on our first floor, and we can upload an image. It can be a JPEG file, and we will scale it in here. So you will need to know the dimensions of your building. You can get that off of Google Maps. You can get it through the RF planner, like a Air Magnet or an Ekahau. But however you get it, we put the dimensions in, and then the software will scale the image that you upload. Another thing to be aware of, if there's a lot of blank space around your building in the drawing, to account for that in your scaling, because basically what this does is it just says this image you uploaded is 200 feet by 300 feet. So if there's a bunch of white space and your building's 200 feet, the building is going to be scaled inappropriately. So kind of keep that in mind. Once we have this uploaded, we can place our APs, and then this is going to give us the ability later to go and look at heat maps. We can look at other AP locations. We can track rogue APs. We can do all kinds of different stuff on these floor plans once we get everything deployed. So once these are in place, you can go ahead and we'll go to configure Wi-Fi. Now again, in this navigation tree, we want to make sure we're adding this configuration to the appropriate spot. So if Manson has a unique configuration, we go on the Manson folder. If you're up at the locations folder, it's gonna just populate all the folders below it with this configuration. So again, it's gonna be unique to your deployment. For the demo, we're gonna do the top level. This would be, all of my sites use the same SSIDs with the same passwords, and we're just gonna have every folder inherit this configuration. So in here, we're going to select, again, configure Wi-Fi, and we're going to add an SSID. We're going to give it a name, demo Wi-Fi. The profile name is for configuration purposes. This SSID name is what broadcasts. You can select if it's a private network or a guest network. This is going to you'll be able to track users that are connected in our security platform in the WIPS dashboards. People connected to a private network will be a different color than on the guest network. So that's what that's for. And then you can hide the SSID if you choose to. Once you add this, go ahead into the bottom and click next. We're going to select our security, support WPA2 and WPA2 mixed mode. We also support 802.1x for radius with dynamic VLAN assignments, and we do support 802.11w and R for advanced roaming. For the demo purpose, we're going to just put in a pre-shared key. We do have built-in mitigation for the WPA2 vulnerability known as crack. Checking this box, basically what it's going to do is anytime there's excessive retries for authentication, we're going to just bounce that device off the network and have it reassociate somewhere that is more appropriate. Maybe they got a better signal strength, a lot less latency, and we'll have less retries during the authentication. When WPA2 is vulnerable, that's when they can inject stuff and get passwords and things like that. So by checking this box, we're going to protect from that. Go ahead and click next again. And here we're going to define the VLAN ID for the SSID. So if the corporate secure network is on VLAN 20, we're going to put that in here. If the guest VLAN is on VLAN 200, we put that in here. So this is defining the VLAN that the people connecting to the SSID are going to be put into. We run in a couple different modes here. The most two popular are bridge mode and NAT mode. Bridge mode is going to allow the users to get DHCP and DNS from the local network, maybe your firewall or your domain controller or DHCP server. NAT mode is going to be the cloud issuing IP addresses and then NATing that traffic from the AP out to the network. One thing to keep in mind with NAT mode is you do lose a lot of visibility into the users at your firewall because it is being NATed from the IP address of the AP they're connected to. So if you're trying to apply security features with like a WatchGuard or another firewall, bridge mode is the way to go. We do support layer 2 traffic inspection and filtering in here, so we can apply some firewalling, some application control, and some web category blocking for URLs. It's not nearly as granular as what you're going to get on a WatchGuard firewall, but if you don't have a WatchGuard firewall or another firewall doing those things, we can turn that on in the Wi-Fi as well. And then if you come down here and hit save and turn on your SSID, you will start broadcasting your SSID. For now, though, we're just going to hit save, just so we don't lose what we've been working on, because there's a bunch more buttons in here under this little drop down. The first one is our access control. We can do client authentication, so we can integrate directly with Google Radius for schools, or we can connect to a Radius Mac authentication server. We can set up your Bonjour gateways. We can do redirections if they're a smartphone or a tablet. So this is kind of your BYOD onboarding kind of lightweight version. We can do blacklisting and whitelisting for your clients, and we can also enable client isolation. The captive portal, which is included in the WatchGuard total Wi-Fi license. Just a couple things in here. By default, you get a basic click-through. You can edit this very easily by clicking on the pencil and changing your logo, changing your background image, changing your color scheme, editing your terms and conditions. Don't forget to do this because there are some spots in here that say enter the name of your company. So it's not ready by default. Your policy, privacy policy, you want to enter that in here, and then we can edit the text that shows up on the splash screen. We can also add different authentication methods for your guest. So again, a click-through is simply going to be click through, and they get access to the internet. You can also do web forms, which is a form that will pop up and they can fill out before they go on the internet. These two methods of authentication are what we call unverified, meaning that they can click through and be anybody. They can fill out the web form as anybody. And we're not verifying that information. We have three other methods of authentication that are verified authentication methods. Social is using social media to log in to the Wi-Fi. So they'd log in with their Facebook credentials or their Twitter credentials. This gives the business the ability to actually get a little bit of data on those users to use for marketing or whatever they may want to use them for. It's pulled from that social media profile that they log in as. Another one that's verified is this username and password. We can allow guests to do self-registration where they enter an email address or SMS passcode, SMS messaging, and then get the passcode through text messages. We can have admins create credentials, kind of a guest book experience where they can go to the front desk and ask for a password to get logged in. So these are two good ways to actually verify the people that are connecting to your Wi-Fi. We also support redirection after login. So they log in with Facebook and they get redirected to the company website. And then, so all of this splash screen, the captive portal we configure here is going to be applied to this SSID that we're creating. And they are unique to each SSID that you create. Under the RF optimization tab, we can do some wireless optimization for performance. Some of these are going to be, all of these are industry standard roaming and load balancing features that are supported by the majority of clients that you're going to be running into. Especially over on the left side, we can enable all of these pretty safely for all networks. 802.11k and 802.11v are newer roaming standards. They're not new by any means, but there are some devices that I run into still during deployments that don't support these, especially older iOS and Mac devices. Older MacBooks tend to have issues with roaming with these turned on. They do provide a great performance enhancement in the network from the roaming if you can run these. But if you do run into an issue with older devices, kind of be aware this might be what it is. And then the last couple things in here, we can do SSID scheduling. So we can say, I want this SSID to broadcast from 8 to 5, then I want it turned off. And with the traffic shaping in QoS, we can really get in and dial in what we're allowing people to do on the Wi-Fi. So we can set bandwidth limits and quotas. We can set QoS for voice traffic and things like that. Once we get through here, we can actually come in and hit save and turn on SSID now. We can select this select the frequencies we want this SSID to broadcast on. In most cases, we're going to run them on both, unless you're turning off 2.4 because you're deploying a very high density environment. There's a couple other things to look at in here just to be aware of. In the radio settings, here is where you can change to manual channel selection if you have a challenging RF environment. You can also change to manual power if you need to customize your environment a little bit. And then there's a lot of additional customization in here. By default, these settings are good for the majority of clients. But if you do have a very challenging deployment, we can adjust things like band steering, load balancing, roaming intervals, and all of those things on the AP to help optimize the performance if we need to. You do the same for 5 gigahertz, select the channels. By default, everything is set to auto. And that is the best for the majority of deployments. But again, we wanted to maintain control of this in case we do have a challenging environment to get this up and running in. Under device settings, we can also take a look at a couple things. Specifically with the AP225, this VLAN extension is where you manage the interfaces of the switch on the bottom of the access point. So you can come in and say, I want port number 2 to be on VLAN 20 or VLAN 10, and VLAN number 3 is going to be on VLAN number 20. And you can save this up, and now you have these two interfaces on the bottom of the access point activated and in their defined VLANs. If you're going to run multiple VLANs in the switch, the Ethernet cable, the port on the switch that the AP is plugged into, needs to have access to these VLANs as well. But you can configure that there under VLAN extensions. The other thing you might want to consider doing is changing this device password. By default, the password is randomized for your APs, but they're going to be unique for each access point. So I would go in here and add a very long administrative password. This password used SSH into the APs if we need to do some troubleshooting. Another nice feature in here is we can turn off the LEDs now. If you have a conference room or a theater kind of deployment, we can make it so that the lights aren't blinking all the time on people. So go ahead and hit save any of your changes, and now your Wi-Fi is up and running. We should be able to see that broadcast. Let's take a look at my phone here. Make sure it's up. All right. So the next step is going to be looking at your specific security needs. Under configuration, we go to WIPs. These first three sections, the access point auto classification, client auto classification, and automatic intrusion prevention, are going to be places you can go and customize the way that the wireless system classifies APs and clients, and what types of activities are going to be triggering our WIPs to automatically prevent some type of wireless threat. The one by default, these settings are pretty good. WatchGuard does have a deploying a trusted wireless environment deployment guide that goes through these in a lot of detail and which ones to check and which ones not to check. I think at the end of the day, these are going to be unique to different deployments, but the default settings are good, especially to get started with. So in the past, we used to have to create these authorized Wi-Fi profiles, and they were challenging because there's a lot of information in here that people really didn't know a lot about their wireless network. So we made that a lot easier now. If the SSIDs are being broadcast from the WatchGuard APs, you simply have to check this box. And this box will take and create these authorized Wi-Fi profiles for any SSIDs that are broadcasting from the WatchGuard APs. It makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier. So check that box and hit save. And we've now started the process of classifying all the access points and clients in your airspace to start monitoring for any type of malicious activities. So here we've got our Wi-Fi configured, we've got our WIPs configured. You can take a look at some of the different options in the monitoring platform. We can see that this is our access point that is running. We can see that these radios are not up yet. It's rebooting from the configuration, but this is where you can see the status of all your radios. You can see which SSIDs are active on your network. You can see what kinds of applications are being run. And then under monitoring WIPs, it's going to be similar. Here's the AP. Here's the list of all the access points in your airspace. And you can see we're starting to classify some access points. One of the things to know in here is if for some reason this classification looks weird, or you got a bunch of APs that you were replacing with WatchGuard in this list that are going to be gone, you can always come in here and just select all and delete. The wireless system will automatically detect the APs that are still there, repopulate this list, and start the classification process over. In most deployments, I let the classification process run for a day or two before I really start to worry about different types of events that are popping up, things like that. But it's really good to check on this, kind of make sure that things look like they're classifying correctly. It's going to be the same with your clients as well. Sometimes it's just nice to start fresh, just to kind of blow everything away and let it start classifying things over again. The other thing in here in monitoring, we can monitor all of our alerts. So these are going to be Wi-Fi alerts. We can look at WIPS alerts. We can look at system alerts. These are going to be disconnected APs, deletion of reports, depending on your schedule that you set, things like that. But those can all be accessed through this monitoring alerts tab. The front dashboard is going to be your best look at kind of your high view of your wireless network. And since there's not a lot of clients on this one, let me log into my other wireless. So maybe we can get a little bit better look at an active network. Oops. If I can type my username in correctly, would help. And if you haven't turned on your MFA for your WatchGuard portal, I recommend doing that. It's always nice to have an additional layer of security in front of your management platforms so that people don't get access to that. Let's see. Okay, so in here, this is my lab Wi-Fi. You can see you got lots of different folder structures in here. But on this dashboard, we track a whole bunch of stuff. So this first section is this client journey. And what it does is it looks at the total number of clients. Have they been able to associate? Were they able to authenticate? And we're monitoring some network requirements for your Wi-Fi as well. There's no integration requirements for this. It's looking at things like access to the local gateway. Did it get DHCP? Did it get DNS? Did it get out to the internet? Things like that. And then the final one is the online versus total failures of connections on your wireless network. We build baselines for all this kinds of information. And then if there's an anomaly in this baseline, we can actually set it up to send alerts to administrators. So if someone comes to the office and they type in the wrong password, they're going to have an authentication failure. It's going to show up on this list. It's also going to be an anomaly in our baseline, can send you an email. One of the things that WatchGuard Cloud does, especially with Discover, is it allows you to be a much more proactive administrator with the wireless system. You don't always have to wait for people to come and complain that there's a problem with the Wi-Fi. You can be prepared with what the issue really is when they reach out to you, and you're actually able to help them much more effectively. Another option in here that we do is we look at performance. So we're tracking what our clients look like. Is there anybody with low signal strength or high retry rates? Is there anybody that has very low data rates? Or clients that aren't roaming correctly? We'll let you know who they are, where they're located, and then we can make adjustments in the system to fix that problem. We also track latency. So we track radius, we track DHCP latency, DNS latency, and application latency. So things like this information is what makes remote office troubleshooting, or if you have a user that works from home, we can get a better idea of performance with these baselines to know what to expect, and then know that there is something going on that we need to look into, or maybe that connection is just really slow all the time. And that's what we kind of expect in the network. We also track the most clients that are using the most traffic. We track network usage throughout the day, so you can see when kind of your peaks are. So again, lots of information in here. We track applications that are being used. So right now, using GoToMeeting, there's one client on there, and the one over on the left side of this means that there's one user, and the performance is optimal. If there was a performance issue, there would be a red number one, and it would give us more details on those performance issues in the environment. The last tab here is going to be our WIPs. This is where you can come in and look. I've got, 7 authorized APs. I've got 1 rogue. I've got 85 external APs. And I've got 2 unclassified APs. Rogues obviously are your really important ones. They're the ones we need to keep an eye out for. You can click on here and get your alerts of all the stuff that's going on in your environment. And then for your networks and your offices, once your deployment's done, all those classifications look correct, and you're happy with how everything looks, you can come in and drop this down to activate your intrusion prevention. Things like this rogue AP would just be taken care of. The intrusion prevention would quarantine this device. It would move any of the users over to the appropriate network or quarantine them depending on your settings that you make. It would take care of those for you, making management of remote wireless networks much, much easier for you. The last thing we're going to take a look at here from a troubleshooting standpoint is this troubleshooting tab. There's a couple things we can do in here. We can run debug logs for clients. We can run them for APs. We do provide a full spectrum analyzer in here so that you can remotely take a look at the airspace that you may be having problems in. We can run packet traces, and we can run these client connectivity tests. The client connectivity test, this is an example of one. I'm running it on my home Wi-Fi. You can schedule this to run anytime you want. I run it every day in my lab, and then we store the results for you. So this is all the results from my lab. The result status is either red or green. Red means something failed, green means everything passed. So we can take a look at like this 225. We can see that it was able to associate, gives you the status. It could authenticate using a pre-shared key. It got DHCP, and here's the information it got. It got access to the gateway with 3 millisecond latency. It got DNS records. The WAN latency to Google was 7 milliseconds. The application test goes through and tests different applications that you select. I'm doing Office 365 and Google, Facebook and LinkedIn, Skype, GoToMeeting, and then I do a custom WatchGuard.com. So we have access to all of those. Where it fails is in these last two, and it looks like the AP actually switched over. Maybe I was doing a demo or something at the time, but it was unable to run the VoIP tests and the throughput tests. What those would look like if you if it finished was this network at this time is running a 4.4 out of 5 mean opinion score for the voice traffic, and my throughput tests are here. So we're running about 100 megabytes UDP traffic download and 214 megabytes of TCP traffic through the Wi-Fi. So these tests are really good to kind of, again, stay proactive in your network performance for your Wi-Fi. The last thing we're going to take a look at is the reports. And there's a bunch of built-in reports here, and these can be run depending on where you select your in the navigation tree. You can run reports on inventory. You can run security reports, so airspace risk assessments, vulnerability reports, security status of your network. We can run compliance reports, so if you have HIPAA or PCI requirements, we can run those reports. They're not designed to, qualify you for your compliance, but it does help us get prepared for your actual audits. And then we can archive reports and we can schedule reports to be ran. So lots of information in here. In the new WatchGuard Discover dashboard. If you don't have access to this and you like to dig around a little bit more, you can visit watchguard.com. There is a public trial where you can get access to the dashboard, play around in it, or you can always reach out to a local WatchGuard reseller, or if you are a reseller, reach out to your local WatchGuard reps, and we can provide 30-day trials of any of our Wi-Fi products. There is no cost. Get them for 30 days, set them up, play around with them, and really experience this for yourself. It's a very, very useful tool to have in your network. Add that additional layer of security and a lot more visibility into your wireless product. So that's the Discover overview. Keep an eye out. We're going to have some more videos that are more specific to different use cases. We're going to have one that's designed to deploy a WatchGuard solution to protect a third-party wireless system. So maybe you have an investment in Meraki or Aruba or Ruckus, and you just want a little bit more security, another layer to protect that network from things like evil twins or rogue APs. How we can deploy a WatchGuard solution just as a security overlay is going to be another video that's coming very soon. So keep an eye out. Thank you everybody for your time. Hopefully this was a little bit informative at least, or you found something interesting that you didn't know about. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to WatchGuard sales reps or your local WatchGuard resellers, and we're always happy to jump on a call and speak more specifically to your wireless projects that you may have at your organization. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you again later.